everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. I am your host, Tommy Harvey, alongside JT, SC Romero, and Andy Pham. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the upcoming slate of the Week 3 games in college football. That will be coming up next. All right, guys. How's everything going tonight?
So far, so good, man.
All right. Well, we got a couple pretty decent games to talk about here tonight. First off, I think the biggest game is probably Tennessee and Florida. There's a lot of potential, Devy assets that we're able to discuss here. My favorite one to talk about, and I've talked about him all off season, is Joe Milton, quarterback for Tennessee. Obviously, biggest arm in college football. I've said it since the draft. If Anthony Richardson could be a top 5 pick, then why couldn't Joe Milton? I think Joe Milton's smarter. I think he's obviously got a better arm. And Anthony Richardson probably has better upside running the ball, but just athletically and just their freak of nature stature, they're very similar. What type of thoughts do you guys have on that?
Yeah, for me, if Joe Milton's going to kind of put his name out there on the main stage, this is the week to do it. There's not a lot of huge games. There's not a lot of big matchups this week. Florida's a big game between Florida and Tennessee. I think this is a chance for him to go out there. If he can light Florida up, I think it helps, his draft stock a ton. I think it gets him on the national stage a little bit more. So for me, this is Milton's chance to kind of show out and get his name on that national stage.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this will be a big game for him. He has to win because next week it's UTSA. That's a chalk up win, but then they have South Carolina A&M, then Bama. So, going to your South Carolina in a couple of weeks, this has to be a good win. He has to improve and just show the SAC that he can put it on the map for him. On the flip side, I think ESPN has it a lot closer than what it should be because I think it's ranked right now like 54% in favor of Tennessee. And I just don't see it in Florida. You have Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. Those backs are the ones that are going to have to carry them. Tennessee's run defense isn't the best, and both those backs are averaging over 6 yards per carry. There really isn't much on the offensive side outside of them. There hasn't been there's a wide receiver in Ricky Purcell, but then there's no one else really outside of that. So it should be a big win for Tennessee. They need to go out there and dominate, and this is a way that Joe Milton can say, like JT said, there's not a lot of tough matchups. This one could be your game of the day.
Yeah, when I was looking at this game, and these two teams are kind of mirrors of each other. The quarterback play, they're both relying on them. They haven't gotten off to good starts. Both of them rely on the run game. The receivers, they also need to step up as well. So when I was looking at this, it was real interesting. And this could be a game where it's who runs the ball better. Is it going to be Tennessee with Jalen Wright and Jabari Smalls, or is it going to be Florida with their duo of Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson? And then for the receivers, is Squirrel White going to step up? Is Ricky Purcell going to be there? Is Eugene Wilson going to get more playing time? And then is Joe Milton going to be fast, make quick decisions, get the offense in a rhythm? Is Graham Mertz going to be able to do the same thing? Or is he going to make bad mistakes? So this game is real interesting. They both mirror each other a lot.
Well, here's the thing. Tennessee hasn't won down in the swamp in 20 years. So they've lost their last 9 games down in Gainesville. haven't won since 03. And it just seems like it doesn't really matter if Tennessee has the better roster. Something weird always happens down there to give Florida the edge. A few years ago, 4th and 14, and they hit a touchdown pass down the sideline, in order to go ahead. Then the very next time in Gainesville, Felipe Franks throws basically what amounts to a Hail Mary to win the game at the very end of it. Something screwy always happens there. And I think the weather forecast is actually calling for thunderstorms. So does that limit the ability to throw the ball for Joe Milton and even Graham Mertz? Are these two teams going to have to rely more and more on their running game? Because traditionally, whoever runs the ball better wins this game. Matter of fact, last year the quarterbacks, both Hendon Hooker and Anthony Richardson, led their teams in rushing. Obviously they're both gone now. So if a quarterback has to lead their team in rushing in this one, I would probably lean Milton over Mertz. Mertz is an okay athlete, but Milton, like I said earlier, is just a freak of nature. And I think Tennessee has a better offensive line, but Florida has those clogs in the middle. They got guys who are like, 400 plus pounds on at their defensive tackle position. Those guys are hard to move, Now take it with, are they going to be able to withstand Tennessee's tempo? Will they be able to stay on the field? Guys that big generally will run out of gas pretty easily. So this game is a little hard to predict just because of there's so many outside factors, just tradition, weather, all that type of stuff, just kind of. It's just always a weird game.
I think that just goes to elevate if Joe Milton goes in the swamp, as you mentioned, having won the past 20 years. If he goes there and just shows some game management, that will just even bring him up even more. When you have a track record like that, what does that do for the school saying we finally did it, right? So that can just improve and give him a little bit more confidence by going there and saying, look, we're not the same team that it's been 20 years ago. This is a new era. This is my era, and I'm going to go out there and dominate. So this can show a lot about his character and what he can do for the team specifically the remainder of the year.
Right. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to what I believe is probably going to be, if not the best game, maybe the next best game. Western Kentucky, Ohio State. I think you just have stars all over the field here. Western Kentucky, obviously, you got that big time offense. Austin Reed throwing to Malachi Corley, and then with Ohio State, Kyle McCord and those wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, and then he's obviously got his running backs there also. What are you guys seeing here?
Yeah, for me, the fact that Western Kentucky, Ohio State's a big game is, you had said this a couple of years ago. People were like, what are you talking about? But it is kind of a big game. There are a lot of Devy guys in this game. Western Kentucky's put up a ton of points lately. Ohio State's kind of been like blah when it came to offense the first couple of weeks of the year. This could be an interesting game. I'm hoping for an absolute shootout. I would love it. Now, can Western Kentucky do that against Ohio State's defense? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But if Malachi Corley can show out in this game and play really well, even if Western Kentucky gets blown out, if he plays really well up next to Marvin Harrison and Egbuka, I think it helps his draft stock big time. I think it puts him on the stage where people are like, oh, who is this guy? It gets him people talking about it on the national shows, and it gets his name in the mix. And I think that could be a huge thing for him because, like we've talked about, we all really like him. I think he is a legit NFL player. And I think this is the spot that for him to show it. If I'm him, I'm coming in this game just psyched out of my mind. I want to show out against Ohio State and what people consider the two best wide receivers in the country. I want to show that I'm in that mix, and I'm excited for this game. I want to watch every moment of this game. I want to see it because I hope he does, and I hope Western Kentucky does something to at least make this game interesting for a while, and I think they will.
I think this is going to be a big game for Austin Reed. He's kind of played flawless up till now, doesn't have any interceptions, 6 touchdowns. And the big thing will be not necessarily on his play, but how he controls the field. He has 6 touchdowns, 6 different receivers. So being able to spread that ball will be a big part, to be able to not just go down one read, but check down on everybody to make sure, hey, I can find the open guy. And there's a freshman there, Easton Messer, who's leading the team right now with 12 yards per carry. That's kind of a quick guy. So he can be the difference maker, the X factor that your Ohio States aren't really prepared for, because they know Malachi Corley is a top receiver. He can make it, and maybe they zone in on him a little bit more so Easton Messer can continue to feed. But I think it's going to come down to we've seen the good and bad, I think, out of Ohio State's quarterback. So if Austin Reed goes out there and just outshows them, outperforms them, this could be a huge part. And if he's smart enough to make the Ohio State defense going everywhere and not knowing where he's going to go, he's not going to one specific guy like he hasn't been, then that could be a huge part. And it could be a possible close game. I'm going to say Ohio State wins, but they could make it closer than what people may think.
Yeah, all off season long with Malachi Corley, he's circled this game because all the talk was about Ohio State receivers. And he wanted to make a statement that says, hey, I'm the best receiver in all of college football. Right now, I have him probably like a round 2, round 3 kind of a guy. And I think he's going to show out. He could have easily played last week, but he sat out because he wanted to be 100% healthy. It's going to be all systems go for him on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm very confused about what to think with the offense for the Buckeyes. I don't think Kyle McCord is it. I think they'd be better off with Devin Brown. I think Devin Brown's much more dynamic, much more athletic, can make plays moving around. I watched their throws I watched all their throws from this past weekend. I went back and watched them. Kind of wanted to see a few different things. Brown has better arm strength, puts better zip on the ball. I think he has better ball placement. Obviously way more athletic. That number 33 throws me off on him, but
yeah, it does.
I just think that's kind of weird seeing that out of the quarterback position. It's like like you're watching some 7U team play out there. It's just really confusing. I think Brown is a better prospect, but for some reason they don't want to put the offense in his hands right now. And then you got that running back position again, really confusing there. You got 4 guys who all could be the guy. Dallin Hayden doesn't get any love there anymore. Chip Traynell moved back from linebacker to running back this season. Obviously you got Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson there. I don't think any guy has been able to really get into a rhythm, and I think that's eventually going to hurt them.
Yeah, I'll just throw it in. I think this Ohio State team feels like a late 90s, early 2000s Ohio State team, a team that played tough defense, had a ton of talent offense, scored just enough, but they just didn't light it up offensively like we've seen the last couple of years. They just I just always remember those games like, hey, Ohio State favored by 35, and they'd always win 30-3. They just never blow anybody out completely. They'd always shut somebody else down and do that. It just feels like that's more of this team. They're just not that dynamic of an offense, even though they have great playmakers around. And it feels like the coaching staff seems like they think that too. And they're like, hey, let's just play tough D. Let's do what we can to score. And instead of last year where there's just like, hey, let's points as many points as we can get. Let's just light it up. It feels like they're like, hey, we do just enough to get us over the top and win. They just feel like a totally different Ohio State team than the last 4 or 5 years.
What it kind of feels like it kind of feels like they just want to do enough, not do anything special and save it all for Michigan. That's what it feels like. They're just
I
saving
agree.
it all, and they're just like, you know what? We're just gonna win. We're better, so we're just gonna go the speed limit. We're just gonna play conservative. We're gonna win. Have people doubt us, and then against Michigan, we're gonna go all out. But by that time, it's gonna be too late.
Right. Does that make you nervous as a Michigan fan, thinking that they're just saving everything for you?
No, not worried.
Dude, I think that's a perfect analogy going 55. That feels like what they're doing. They're like, hey, we can go 55 and win. We can go 55 and win. We'll crank it to 70, 75 later, but we're going to go 55 for now. I think you're right. That's a perfect analogy. That feels like what Ohio State's doing right now. When they didn't blow out Indiana, everybody's like, what the hell? And you looked at them and they were like, good job, guys. We're good. It's like they're like, oh, yeah, we thought we'd win like 28-3. 31-3. It's like they had no intention of just rolling up Indiana. They're like, we knew we made enough plays. We won. We're good.
It just kind of makes you feel like they don't care either, and that's I think that's eventually going to jump up and bite them.
It could.
All right, let's move on to LSU and Mississippi State. Again, another team I'm kind of confused by. They did not look good in week one against Florida State. Their offense was really bogged down for some reason. I'm not the biggest fan of Jaden Daniels. I don't think he's their best option at quarterback. I do think that they found something with Logan Diggs. He didn't play week one, but he kind of exploded last week. Was really excited to see him play. Hopefully he's the guy in that backfield now, because I think he has real potential. On the Mississippi State side, Jaquavius Marks, he is their offense. That offense has taken a dramatic shift over the last several years after Mike Leach's passing. And they are a completely different type of offense now. They are no longer that spread you out and air raid type of offense, which kind of weird because you still got Will Rogers there, and he's still able to sling it, but they're just not doing that anymore.
Yeah, if you look at their game last week against Arizona, you would have never imagined these numbers a year, 2, 3 years ago. Arizona threw 32 times for 46 yards. Mississippi State 13 for 17. 17 passes is all Will Rogers threw in a game that went to overtime. I mean, Mississippi State has completely changed things around. I don't know what to think about this team at all. They won that game. I don't think Arizona is very good, to be honest with you, outside of Ted McMillan I love. But Arizona's not very good. But, man, I got Marks in a bunch of C2C and CFF teams, and I love him. I'm very nervous about playing him this week against LSU's defense. I'm trying to talk myself into it, but I just feel like he's going to get shut down. But, man, this Mississippi State team, if there's any team in the country that's completely taken a 180, it's them on coaching philosophy and offensive philosophy.
So I can't get over the play that Jaden Daniels did against Florida State, where he hurdled over the guy and just got lit. Like, I just can't. I can't get that image out of my head, because when you have a starting quarterback, that's just a bonehead play, right? Like, you just don't do that. Why? It's not even like a touchdown or anything like that. It was like, bro, it was like right in the middle, and it's like you just don't do something like that. He got lit up. It's like a wrestling move happened to him. On top of that, LSU's defense hasn't been doing really good tackling. On PFF, they're ranked 112 out of 200 schools there. They have 8 guys over 20% missed tackle rate. And on the flip side, when you had Jaquavius Marks, he has 12 missed tackles forced already. So he could possibly have a field day just because LSU is unable to connect. They're not able to make the plays on the guys, and they're letting guys slip away here and there. So the defense on LSU, I think, is going to be the X factor there. They have to learn how to wrap up, especially in the SEC. If they want a shot to get back into the playoff rankings, that defense needs to step up because you have some talent on the LSU side on offense, right? And I think if the defense can make bigger plays and stop some guys, then it's going to allow Jaden Daniels and that offense to kind of slow it down, take a step back, and, get it out to his receivers. But I think this is we might see Mississippi State 3-0 and LSU 1-2.
Yeah, for LSU, I think this is a game where it needs to go through the receivers. Brian Thomas has done really well, but the guy that we all want is Malik Neighbors. He's played all right this year, but he hasn't had that game where you go, that's the guy. And I think this will be the game where Jaden Daniels has to lean on him, has to go to him, just keep feeding him and see what he can do. Another guy I want to mention is Aaron Anderson. All fall camp, we've heard about how they've used him in gadget plays, try to get him out in space. He just moves different than other receivers. Will this be a type of a game where they actually use him? So that's another guy that I want to see.
Well, I mean, with Malik Neighbors, has he not looked like the guy because he's not the guy, or has he not looked like the guy because of his quarterback just can't get him the ball very well?
His quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that. I mean, go back to that Florida State game. Even that long touchdown catch that Brian Thomas had, it was an intermediate pass that was underthrown that he had to come back and make a play on, and then just happened to make a move and take it all the way. I don't think Neighbors is that type of player. Neighbors is the type of guy that, he's a possession guy. He's a 50-50 ball type of guy, but he's not going to make a move and be able to take off on you. So they're going to have to utilize him in a way that, we're going to, that they're going to run slants, that they're going to run goes with him to where he can go up over the top of the defense, catch that 50-50 ball. I don't think Jaden Daniels can throw that. I think that's a big issue. And I wonder if SC is right and Mississippi State wins this game, does LSU look at potentially making a move to Nussmeier?
They already should have.
I agree. I don't think Jaden Daniels has the arm. I don't think he has the intelligence. I mean, SC even made mention to that hit he took against Florida State where he literally tried to jump into the middle of the line. It's not like he was making a move to avoid anybody. He literally jumped into the defender. That's not a smart move for a quarterback to make.
The whole thing with
Go ahead, man. There was no sense in making that jump. It wasn't like open field or anything like that. It was
stupid.
Go ahead, Andy.
The whole thing with LSU, they were preparing all off season to make a championship run. And you put all that hopes into Jaden Daniels when you have Garrett Nussmeier waiting in the wings for what? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I thought them going and getting Jaden Daniels initially last season was an okay move just because you didn't really know what you had at quarterback. But I think, with this being year 2 in Brian Kelly's system, Nussmeier should be ready by now. So just go to him already.
Yeah.
I mean, if they go 1-2, I think you're left with that because at that point, if you lose to Mississippi State, you're out the playoffs, right? So there's nothing. You're playing for a bowl game at that point. So I mean, you're not losing anything. To go in there and say, okay, let's see what we have in our sophomore prodigy here to see what he can do and see what we can start to prepare for to get better leading into next year as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next game we got Minnesota against North Carolina. There's a little bit to unpack here. That North Carolina offense does not look good. Almost to the point where they've shifted on being a run first team now, and they're not relying on Drake May to go out there and just do everything for them. Omarion Hampton had a heck of a game last weekend. Over 200 yards rushing, and looked really, really good. It looks like he has taken over that backfield role, and it almost looks like that North Carolina offense is going to run through him and not Drake May.
Yeah, I agree with that there. I mean, I have it here that this is actually going to be the battle of the running backs. You have Minnesota that has Darius Taylor and Son Tyler. They both have over 5 yards per carry. And then on the flip side, you have two guys in North Carolina and Hampton and Brooks that both have over 6.5 yards per carry. So I think this is just going to be a run-heavy game. We're going to see both guys go lights out, and it's going to be whoever can get that first big stop, with these running backs, whether it's a 4th and 1 or something like that to get that first down. Whoever get that big first stop can do it. It could be what y'all are saying. They might just be trying to save Drake May, wait for that push to be like, okay, now let's unleash him. But also it's, don't fix what isn't broken. If the running game is working with Hampton, I mean, granted it was against Appalachian State, so granted that's a huge gain. 200 plus yards is always huge, but if that's still working recipe to success, then why are you going to go try to change it? But I think this is going to be a fun game to watch, because both teams have backs that can explode for a big play and can make some big yardage and grab a bunch of chunks there. But it's Drake may move down, and that's unfortunate for me because he was my QB2, but it could just be that lack of playing that they're not trusting him anymore. But right now he's been moving down my rankings because I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, he's in danger of falling out of the top 3 for me. He looked really bad to end the season last year. To begin the season this year, he has not looked good. And now he doesn't have a top flight wide receiver 1 to throw the ball to. Tez Walker isn't coming back. So, his top receiver is Kobe Paysor, and I don't know if Paysor can handle that type of role. And if not, then May's going to struggle.
The question comes in for May, like when we saw
I'm starting to worry about Drake May becoming a Sam Howell situation where it's like he crushed it. He had great weapons around him. He looked awesome. All of a sudden, he falls off a cliff because he's got nobody to throw to, nobody to do anything. And you see Sam Howell was talked about as a first-round guy, and next thing you know, he's a 5th-round pick. It's like, man, I don't see that, hopefully, for Drake May. I don't see it, like, dropping to a 5th round or anything. But, man, it's if something doesn't happen, he's going to have to come back to school and hope they get better players around him because he's in danger of dropping out of the top 10, maybe farther at this point. I've already seen a couple draft mocks that have him late teens at this point. So it's, you hate to say it's like, look at the guy's skill level, see what we can do, but it matters on the field. If you get out there and your production is just, non-existent, teams take that into a factor. So I think what SC says the running game, really interesting was I was really surprised that British Brooks was like the guy in week 1. I mean, he's been a special teamer his whole career, missed all last year. I had him on a C2C team, and I was like, hey, man, at this point, it's time to cut bait. I dumped him, and then he had the 100-yard game for his game, and then they came back with Hampton. I was like, okay, this makes a little more sense to me. I think Hampton is probably the guy. I think Brooks is probably going to be just, very little secondary back from now on. But I think North Carolina figures they got to run the ball. And I think Minnesota is the same way. Like SC said, I think they decided, like, we got to run the ball if we're going to win. They don't trust their QB at all. They just really don't. This is a game that I feel like should be a super big firepower game between Minnesota and North Carolina. And this has all the makings of a really low-scoring, pounded out, old school, everyone runs the ball, every play down. It feels like a complete under game to me all around.
Yeah, it really feels like a 17-14 type of game.
Absolutely.
The passing struggles of North Carolina, like, for me, that was expected. as soon as Phil Longo left, I knew there were going to be issues. And what they have there now, they want a more balanced offense. But when Drake May is being asked to go out there and make throws, he's just a touch off. Just a touch off here, just a touch off there. It just hasn't clicked this year. And so that'll be interesting to watch. I still have him as quarterback 2, and it's more of no one's jumped him, or no one for me has deserved to take that spot. Now with conference play coming up, you have JJ McCarthy, you have Quinn Ewers, you have guys that can take that next step to possibly be the quarterback 2. But right now, Drake May is in flux, and I just have him as quarterback 2 by default. But as soon as conference play hits, I'm going to be looking at these other quarterbacks and see how they do, because right now Drake May doesn't look like the quarterback 2. Just no one else has jumped him for me. And then for Minnesota, they have a really good tight end, a Brevin Span Ford. So he's just someone that I want to mention. He's someone that could be easily like a round 3 guy for the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, you're making mention that nobody has really jumped May. Do you not think Ewers did enough on Saturday to do that?
I want to see him do it against someone else besides Alabama. He seems like the Alabama killer. He steps up and plays huge against them, but when when you watch him play against Rice, you see him being off on those deep passes. You see a little bit of mistakes here and there. So if he were to play Alabama every week, yeah. But I want to see more of it. So that's the only reason why I haven't jumped him up.
See, the only issue is that for the rest of the season, they don't really play anybody who's on that level anymore.
But
they have Oklahoma left, obviously. But
yeah, they do with that. But they do have a bigger goal now since they beat Alabama,
right,
the national title.
Yeah,
so they have that going for them. So I want to see more of that consistent play going forward.
Sure.
But fun fact with Minnesota and North Carolina is North Carolina now has a transfer that came from Minnesota last year, and Travis Potts as their running back too. So that's someone that can at least give them some insight on being like, look, man, this is what the running game is about. He was part of that backfield with Ibrahim. So that's just very interesting. And this could be just a crazy game where he goes in there and just says, I want to, do work on my former team. You see it all the time where someone goes in there and has the game. So a sleeper guy to watch out for might be Travis Potts if they're like, all right, let's try to give you the reins there.
All right, well, how about we move on to South Carolina and Georgia? This is an interesting game to me. Georgia has not looked just lights out yet this year. I do think that they are the best team in the country, but I kind of need to see them show it. I do think Carson Beck is a future NFL quarterback. Their running game is a little muddled. I don't think they have the receivers. Obviously, they have a great tight end with Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp. But then on the flip side with South Carolina, Spencer Rattler's been playing really, really well. Played really well to end the season last year. Played really well so far this year. Especially with his wide receiver 1 out. Speaking of that wide receiver 1 spot, Xavier Legette has kind of jumped into that role and has played really well. Trey Knox hasn't really done anything for them though. DK Joyner hasn't really done anything for them. So do they have enough to make this a game, or is this going to be Georgia just kind of toying around with them and then winning 38 to 14 because they scored a couple late touchdowns?
I think it's gonna be interesting.
I think Georgia. I think Georgia is gonna smoke them here. I think Rattler could still play well, but we saw it against North Carolina. He played well against North Carolina, but got 9 sacks against North Carolina. He got sacked 9 times. I think Georgia's defense is going to be all over him. I still think he can play a good game, but I just don't think South Carolina has what it takes to hold up with Georgia. The thing we always got to think with Georgia too, people forget, you get a new quarterback, it just takes some time to kind of get things together. I mean, we want these teams to just step right in, do the same thing they did the last year, be just as good as they were the last year. It takes a little time. Carson Beck's been solid. He hasn't been spectacular late, but we got to give him a little bit of time. I think Georgia, absolutely works the Gamecocks. I think Rattler has been way better than I thought he'd be to start the season, but I don't think there's any way their offensive line could protect him in this game.
I would say the opposite. I think it comes down to that wide receiver. Rattler's been playing phenomenal. 83% completion compared to Beck's 72. But I think that goes to show, like you were saying, no one's really stepped up in that Georgia offense, and their run game kind of just looks meh. There's nothing really fascinating as far as what we've seen, what we're used to in a Georgia team, right? Just pure dominance. You have Roger Robinson there, doing his thing, and then you have Kindle, as well. So it's something where that's going to have to be something that they establish early. But then South Carolina has some dogs. They always have some dogs on defense. They have 5 guys over double digits in tackling right now. They have 5 guys that know how to connect and know how to make those big plays. So I think that's going to be the story there in the running game, because I think Spencer Rattler, he knows he's when he first came out, he was someone we talked about as a first-round pick, right? When he was back before he came into his college days. And now it's like, wait, where's he at? But he's slowly rising those ranks again because he's showing out and he's making sure people know who he is. So this could be a huge game on the map that maybe they circled for a long time. It's going to be interesting to see what Georgia does, because if they go out there and dominate, then it's like, okay, this is a team that, is ready to compete, because they haven't looked like the national title Georgia team that we're used to, I don't think.
Yeah, is Mike Bobo a national championship caliber coordinator? That remains to be seen. I mean, last several years under Todd Monken, they were dominant. They were able to basically do whatever they wanted to do, and I don't know if they can anymore.
So for me, I've always been a big Spencer Rattler guy. So I've watched his entire career. When he flamed out at Oklahoma and he went to South Carolina, he struggled. There's no sugarcoating it. But on the biggest stage, he showed out. Last year against Tennessee, he showed out. In the bowl game, he showed out. Against the top competition, he steps up. He wants that. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to make plays. So this is going to be his game. The only way South Carolina can win this game is if he plays out of his mind. And he's been playing out of his mind. He's completed over 80% of his passes. All he needs is 3 seconds for his offensive line to block for him, and they haven't been able to do that. So that's going to be a struggle. But we finally have a game where Juice Wells is healthy. He's going to play. Xavier is also going to play. So now you have 2 guys on the outside with the perimeter, and then they're going to go out there. Georgia doesn't have, or Georgia can't focus on any one guy. They have to play the entire field. So there is a chance, there is an outcome where Georgia continues to struggle early on, because early on they want to establish the run with Robinson and Milton, and they just don't get into a flow. So I can see early on where Georgia is still a little slow on the offense, trying to find their way, because the first 2 games they haven't played anyone. Whereas South Carolina, they already had that tough game with North Carolina. Their offense is in rhythm. I could see a possibility where right out of the gates, 14-3 South Carolina, 2 touchdown passes for Spencer Rattler, and Georgia has to play catch up. There is that outcome that can happen. Now, Georgia's the more talented team, but what if Georgia is still slow out of the breaks? They go 3 and out, or they have like maybe 8 plays and then they have to punt it. And then South Carolina gets the ball and they're pumped. This is their championship game right now. They're playing the number one team in the nation. They're going to be ready for this. So I want to see that start. I want to see South Carolina play fast and have good rhythm early on.
Yeah, I mean, with Georgia, coming off 2 straight national titles, are they becoming complacent? Um, do they care as much as what they did? I know that that they have a whole new group of players and all this stuff, but that type of mindset can leak into a program. Whereas, like you said, for South Carolina, this is their championship game. This is the game that they look forward to. For Georgia, does Georgia care about South Carolina? I mean, South Carolina wants to beat Georgia, but does Georgia really care about South Carolina all that much? When it comes to these types of games, you're kind of looking at that way is it means more to one team than it does the other, and I think this game means a lot more to South Carolina in their minds than what it does to Georgia. I think Georgia thinks that they can just kind of go out there and roll the ball out and beat everybody. And then when it comes to the quote unquote big games is when they turn it on.
Do you think, as far as rankings, this game hurts Georgia more if they lose or helps South Carolina more if they win?
No, it hurts Georgia more if they lose because South Carolina's already gotten a loss. So it hurts Georgia more if they lose because now if Tennessee happens to, say Tennessee runs the table all the way to Georgia, now you're looking at a Georgia team who has at least one loss, and now they have to beat Tennessee at the end of the season. Whereas if they run the table and Tennessee has a loss by then, say Tennessee's lost to Alabama or A&M or even Florida on Saturday, that game is all in Georgia's favor at that point. Georgia has no pressure on them. So I think coming off 2 national titles, Georgia, has to win these games leading up to their big ones. And I just don't get that feeling that Georgia's really in that mindset that they really care right now.
It's fair.
All right. I think we all have a couple of different situations we're wanting to discuss. Kind of to end our show here tonight. There's a couple offenses I'm wanting to talk about that just haven't clicked. Alabama and Texas San Antonio. Neither one. We were expecting a lot more out of these offenses coming into the season, especially UTSA. Alabama with Jalen Milroe. I think he's given them all he can possibly give them. He's not a passing quarterback. He's a runner, and Alabama's going to be severely limited because of him. Their running back room, kind of like Georgia, is just real muddled down. You never know from game to game who's going to get the carries, who's going to have the big games. And again, kind of like Georgia with Alabama, their wide receiver room. What are we going to expect out of that? It's just they're just guys. Whereas Texas San Antonio, Frank Harris has not been good. Kavorian Barnes has been okay, nothing great. And then Joshua Cephas has done what he's able to do. DeCorian Clark played a little bit this past weekend. He missed the first game against Houston. What are we expecting with these 2 offenses, guys?
It's on mute there.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Frank Harris, man, guy led to me to a C2C and a CFF championship last year. Loved him, grabbed him everywhere in new startups or new leagues. He has not looked the same. He has not looked the same. I thought he was a guy that maybe would push where he could be a late round drafted quarterback or undrafted free agent signee. And man, he has looked terrible this year. Maybe he's lost a bunch of his wide receivers, like Gary Franklin going to Mississippi, has obviously hurt more than they realized. Clark being out is hurt. Just having Cephas only, where Cephas was really like kind of their wide receiver 2 or 3 last year. He's kind of been the only guy. But Harris is just, man, he hasn't run the ball well. His passing stats, his first 2 games are worse than any game he had all of last year. This UTSA offense, I mean, they were humming the last 2 seasons, and I don't know what's going on over there, what's happening, but they do not look good at all. Alabama is going to have to go back to old school SEC, ground and pound, play tough defense. They've got a lot of studs on defense. I don't know if that's going to do it for them, but I think that's how they win. I just don't think they can outscore some of the better teams in the SEC. I just don't think with Milroe they can do that. So I think they're going to have to figure out how to slow games down and pound the rock and figure out who is their best running back, because obviously it's a mess right now. But those 2 programs right now are not anything what we thought they would be this year.
Yeah, Harris kind of scares me moving forward, just because he's coming off that knee operation in the offseason. Is he ever going to be the same again? I don't have a whole lot of hope for him being an NFL quarterback, but at least C2C and CFF, I'd like for him to be relevant, and he's just not right now.
Yeah, going on Bama, I think they're in the kind of same boat with Georgia, where they just haven't established that run game that we're used to. None of their running backs have truly stepped up, in my opinion, so it's causing more people to focus in on Milroe, and he's doing what he can, but with a team like that, such a high caliber team, when you don't have the established run game, it does hurt your quarterbacks. They can't be loose. They can't go out there and make the play actions that they once may have done. And in the SEC conference, that's a big part in winning, just being all around team. It's not just about having a dominant defense, but also having good quarterback play, good running back play, good wide receivers all around, so I think they need, they're running a committee approach kind of, but they need someone to take the reins and be like, look, I am the guy that you can count on every single down if you need to. And I don't feel there's really been a running back to do that at Alabama.
I think with the Alabama, they have that tradition where you wait your turn. And for years and years, that's always worked out. But this year, it's come back to bite them, because their best running back is Justice Haynes, but they won't play him because he's a true freshman. Jace McClellan, he is serviceable. That's really all you can say about him. But he's going to get the reps because he's a senior. He's waited his turn. So with the way that they approach that committee, that's hurt them this year. If they end up losing one more game, I think they have to go with Justice Haynes. He's the guy that has the juice. And I think that's the issue. As far as the quarterback play, they have to make it easier for him. He struggles reading defenses, so you just have to make shorter plays. Just have him have 2 reads, and if it's not there, take off and run. Because right now, with the way they have him reading 3-4 reads and then decide, he can't do that. The game is going too fast for him. They just need to do some quick slants to Bond, and then every once in a while do a play action and throw deep. That's what they have to do this year, and I don't think they're going to be able to do well with that.
Yeah, that's fair. Andy, you had a couple guys you were wanting to talk about. Go ahead and take the floor.
Yeah, so the first guy I want to talk about is actually the Syracuse offense. Gadsden was in a walking boot. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So now, for me, the offense should go through LaQuint Allen. He's looked tremendous every time he's touched the ball. And I think they have Purdue this week, and then they have Army. But after that, they have Clemson, at North Carolina, and then at Florida State. So I think it's time that they focus on the run, focus on winning the time of possession, and then get him going. And I think if they do that, I think his Devy asset, I think, goes up. He's someone that I've been waiting to just go off. And he's done well this year. I believe he had like 3 touchdowns on 8 carries last week. And so with his opportunities, when he's had them, he's done great with them. We just need to get more. And then with the final guy I want to talk about, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in real quick, Andy. Sorry about that. I love Quinn Allen. I'm right with you on that. I think Syracuse needs to, kind of feature him a little bit more. Garrett Schrader, they need to run that RPO with both of them. He can actually run the ball himself. I think that's the way they need to feature the offense going forward, because Allen has looked really good. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities just because they didn't need him to have 1 million carries in the first couple of games. But, man, he's a guy that's got my eye as a Syracuse guy. He's looked really good. I mean, he is totally filling the shoes of Sean Tucker. He's right up there. I think if he can get in these games and they can feature him more and run more RPO with Schrader, I think it just helps Allen out a bunch. I just want to jump in to say that real quick because I love Allen too. I think it's a great call by you.
And with the next guy I want to talk about is UCLA true freshman quarterback Dante Moore. They have a easy prep coming up this week with NC Central, and then they go into the heart of the Pac-12. They're at Utah, and then they have a bye week, and then Washington State, and then at Oregon State. For me, in the Pac-12, Utah and Oregon State have the 2 best defenses, hands down, to me. So this next stretch for Dante Moore, it's going to be something that I'm looking forward to. Does he step up? Does he answer every question that we have as a true freshman? Or does he have kind of some struggles here and there, and then we kind of have to put the brakes on? So this next, upcoming schedule for UCLA, I really want to see how well they do.
Yeah, I'm interested in more also. He's got a ton of potential, and most people have him anywhere from QB1 to QB3 or 4 in this class, and in a very loaded quarterback class, mind you. For him to be able to come into a major Power 5 school and basically start from day one, because he was like a co-starter in week 1 for them, to where he is now completely taken over that role. I think it just goes to show how good he is. And I would like to see that the connection with him and Sturdivant get even deeper.
Yeah.
For me, Dante Moore is a guy whose Devy percentage or asset, like where he goes, could increase huge this year. If he looks well against Oregon, he looks well against USC, even if UCLA gets beat. If he plays well against those teams, I feel like his stock just rises and rises, because he's one of the few freshman QBs out there playing. So everybody else is like, hey, we love the potential. We love these guys. He's one of the few guys out there. And if he doesn't have to blow everyone's mind, he just has to play solid. If he plays solid as a freshman with the worst team, I think it just gets everybody in the Devy community behind him. I mean, I think these next couple of weeks for UCLA, there's a chance for him to really raise his stock for sure.
I agree. I think, I've been saying it for a while now with the Pac-12 kind of just being destroyed right now, as far as what's going to happen next year. Everyone's trying to show out. So this could definitely be a big time for Dante Moore as he enters in a new conference to be like, look, this is my time. I'm up there with these quarterbacks that are also showing out. You think about your Caleb Williams, your Bo Nix, so this is just a great opportunity. And he's someone, as a true freshman, he doesn't need to win, but he just needs to look good. He doesn't need to make the simple mistakes that he would as a freshman or anything like that. He just needs to go out there and show that he can compete with these teams and not get blown out 50-3.
Hey, SE, go ahead and give us your under the radar guy of the weekend.
That's gonna be Jamal Banks, Wake Forest guy. I mean, that guy is a monster. I loved him. H.E. Perry, and Jamal Banks is better. He's faster. He's quicker. He has a nice catch radius. He's catching over everybody. He has over a 60% contested catch matchup. These last 2 games, he has, I think, just over 14 yards per carry and already 2 TDs. He's someone that what I liked about H.E. Perry was the catch radius. He's someone that's tall and big, but he was very crisp when he ran. He was very stiff almost. He was quick, but he was kind of stiff when he did it. I don't see that in Jamal Banks. He's someone that can beat the guys over the top or run a nice route. The quarterbacks trust him. They know they just need to throw it up to him, and you'll just see him jump up and just snag it over 2 defenders. He's someone that I think will rise some draft boards just because right now it's looking like he's the guy right now for Wake Forest. So someone just to keep an eye on because he does have that NFL prototype and size of a wide receiver. So I like to look for those guys, the late guys you're not necessarily seeing as a first round talent or anything, but maybe a day 2 or an early day 3. I think Jamal Banks can rise those boards, and he's someone you want to keep your eye on.
I actually like that. I actually like that play a lot. Now, we all know you're an IDP guy. Give me an IDP guy that is kind of that people should know about.
That's gonna be Iowa's Jack Campbell. No, I'm just kidding. He just got drafted, right? He was one of the top guys getting drafted to Detroit Lions. So who stepped up and who made that play? Jay Higgins. That's a guy that in week 1 he had over 10 solo tackles, but in week 2 he saw under 5. This guy, when I was looking at his tape, I was looking at the scores and everything. What's interesting is they're not really using him in the box. He's dropping back for coverage a lot, and he has the worst coverage rate on his team, over 88%. When passes are being thrown to him. So that's maybe why he's getting those tackles. But when you have a Jack Campbell and who was the other guy that I can't think of, Seth Benson, they both got drafted. You needed a new linebacker to come and take the floor, be your quarterback on the defense. And Jay Higgins has shown that, but at the same time, he hasn't. I need to see more to him. And they play Penn State in a couple weeks. That's a big game. You have Katron Allen, you have Nicholas Singleton. He's going to need to show up and step up to have a chance to beat them. Iowa can be nice, but I think this defense behind him needs to step up a little bit. But he's going to be a linebacker that we're going to be talking about come draft time.
Okay, interesting. JT, go and give me somebody you're watching this weekend.
I'll mute again.
Sorry, I got myself mic'd up. Sorry. I make sure I'm not making noise in the background. If we're talking IDP, Jared Verse from Florida State is a guy that I think is going to just light up the combine. I think he's going to move way up draft boards. It continues to impress for the Seminoles. He's a guy I got my eye on big time if I'm an IDP league. Is he Will Anderson? I don't know if he's Will Anderson yet, but he's a guy that could be in that realm. So he's a guy I like. He stole my guy with Banks. I love Banks. I think he's been one of the guys that I've been playing him everywhere, CFF, C2C. I love his body, his size. I just think he's a guy that at the next level is going to do something. And I know SC's going to love this because we've talked about him a lot because me and him are in sync. Damian Martinez gets San Diego State, gets the Aztecs this week. They've got a pretty tough defense, been solid. They play UCLA next week. I think he just continues to pound. The guy's got great size, speed, body control. I'm a big Damian Martinez guy, as SC is. I just love to keep watching him, keep him improving. I'm a true sophomore. This guy's moving up my boards big time. And if you're a CFF C2C guy, he's a start all day long.
Yep.
Love the Oregon love.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Go ahead and tell us where we're able to find you guys. Tell us what we got going on. What it is you're working on right now.
Right now, you can find me on X at the PPR show, doing my Devy learnings or CFF learnings every Tuesday we're doing offense, and then I'm partnering with Nino Brown to do IDP for CFF on Wednesday. You can find just threads on X there at the PPR show, and then I have a weekly start sit article coming out for IDP on RPO football as well. And then every Tuesday and Thursday we're doing this Devy show on Wednesdays, and I'll start doing it on Mondays too. A question of the day about something you want to hear us talk about. This week was Jaden Daniels. We're not in on Jaden Daniels if you didn't catch that, but question of the day every Monday and Wednesday to get y'all's input and see what y'all want us to talk about on the show.
Andy?
You can find me at Andy_Fam1, doing 3 articles a week. Monday, we're doing stock up, stock down, C2C guy to watch. Middle of the week, we're doing a player profile. And then to end the week, we're doing a preview of some Devy games and C2C games to watch.
Awesome. Mr. JT Orange, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, find me JT Orange on the X, talking about a little bit of everything. Got my JT parlay play of the days in there. Got my one on the Eagles game tonight kind of go on there. We're trying to sneak that one out. I'll have my check me out every Wednesday, Thursday. I put my college football gambling show together. Also my NFL show on the Stew with JT Brew on the Dynasty Pros football channel. So check that one out. If you're into IDP, I have rankings on DLF, and I do an IDP article for Fantrax every Wednesday.
Awesome. Well, I am Tommy Harvey. You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Dynasty Pros Tom. I do a lot of Devy stuff for the website dynastyprosfootball.com. A lot of editing, and obviously Tuesdays and Thursdays here. But that is going to do it for tonight's show. Again, I'm Tommy Harvey for Justin Taylor, SC Romero, and Andy Pham. We will see you next Tuesday. You guys have a good night.